This week on Supercars Talk, I discuss some news items from during the week, discuss my origin story, and get some splinters in my ass deciding if I'm a Ford or Holden supporter. The plan for this week was to begin having a Bathurst kind of preview a few weeks leading. I planned to have someone sat next to me, but I think they got a bit stuck into the red wines, not taking everything as serious as what they should, and they couldn't make it this week. Hopefully we can tee up something next week. So I'll start my big Bathurst preview next week. For this week, I'll have a bit of a look at the news that's happened during the week. Apparently we're going to reduce the amount of downforce for next year. So previously we had Project Blueprint and things like that. Everyone probably had similar amounts of downforce, and then we went to Car of the Future and everyone kind of started off the same, and then the would have been the VF Commodore was the first one to come in and was a bit better than the previous, making a bit more downforce, doing things a little bit smarter, starting to use CFD, things like that. The Volvo came in, probably went to another kind of level a bit. FGX Falcon, again, VF Commodore had an update, a little bit more again. ZB Commodore came in, went to a new realm, and then the Mustang just kind of came in over the top. And you probably find if you ran, the original kind of Car of the Future, an Altima or the Mercedes or the FG Falcon from back then, if you compared them to, say a Mustang or, the current update of the ZB Commodore, it's a bit hard to follow when there's, so many changes happening this year. But you probably find that, these cars now are making, I'm not sure on the figures, but a lot more downforce than what they were making back in 2013 when the Car of the Future kind of kicked in. And what they're saying is, like, say around Pukekohe, where you had Whincup was running around by himself on the Saturday, making up bulk amounts of time, and then as soon as he got stuck in behind Van Gisbergen at the end of the stint, he was just kind of stuck there. The aero wash on the cars, so what that is, when you get close to another car, your downforce gets disturbed from following in the dirty air of the car behind. And yeah, he was kind of stuck where he was. He couldn't kind of make up the time anymore. So basically what they're saying is next year we're going to reduce downforce. The figure I heard was probably somewhere around 10-15%. Not enough. I think they should be looking, 50%. Get rid of a heap of downforce. The lap times will be slower, of course. People are always, worried. But really, when you're worrying about lap times, the only time that lap times are really talked about is when we come to Bathurst. And, will they break, the 203 barrier and things like that this year? We had Murphy's Lap of the Gods for years at the 206 that, no one seemed to be getting near, and all of a sudden, now Scotty run, 203.8 or something last year in the shootout. That shows you kind of, how far the cars have come. That's the only time that we care, and it seems to be, because someone will run a Ferrari or something around there, no rules and, super sticky one lap tyres and things like that. And, they'll do a 202 or whatever, and everyone will go, oh, the Ferrari's faster than the supercar. Well, yeah, let's not get into that today. But Bathurst is the only time we care, and really, if they're racing around there doing 208s or something like that, as opposed to a 203, but if the racing's better, if people are able to pass than that, well, that's, I'd much prefer to see the cars being a few seconds a lap slower and racing a lot better, rather than, seeing in Pukekohe where everyone gets out of the car and just whinges oh, I couldn't pass anyone because of the aero, and you know, we pitted early to try and get clear air and things like that. Let them race, you know. Take away a heap of downforce, make the wings or whatever on there just to look cool, kind of thing, you know. Don't have them as big downforce producers, give them sticky tyres, let them go for it. Yeah, bit of rubbing and racing and it'll be a lot better, I think. So the idea's there, but, you know, execution, you know, wholesale changes, not, you know, little tinkering here and there. Anyway, what they're saying as well is now to do the testing, I think the idea is now leave everything as it is for the rest of the year, and then do full testing of the cars at the start of next year, like they did this year, but apparently we got it wrong. So what they've actually developed an active damper for the cars. So this is something that happened in Formula One, late 80s, early 90s. Williams kind of perfected it in 92 with Nigel Mansell and had a dominant year. Anyway, so they're going to put an active damper into the cars to do the testing, and what that means is while the car's on the run, they can actually quite easily raise and lower the ride height, so they can quite quickly and easily test the cars at all different ride heights, put them on different angles and that, you know, do a millimetre change at a time and things like that, and just have them running around and get all different figures so that they can say, well, when they're at 50 mil off the ground, they're all the same, you know, drop them to, you know, 49 mil, all the same kind of thing, and everyone run through, everyone's the same, it's all fair. Yeah, and then we might see Nissan win a race. Will the Nissan be around? That's another good question for next year. So anyway, on the changes for next year as well, engines are going to be down by about 15 horsepower, they reckon. What they're going to do is change to a cheaper piston ring and rocker. It's all in that magic part of the engine, fuel and air goes in and power comes out the back. So things happen, and yeah, we're going to have a little less power. You're not going to notice 15 horsepower, so let's not get excited about that. They reckon that by changing this, the cheaper piston and ring, I think the idea is that they become a control component. Apparently it's going to cost $390, and apparently at the moment the guys are spending around about $2,000 on these piston rings or whatever. It will reduce the power, and they reckon because of the less power and that, there'll be less stress on the engine, and so instead of rebuilding the engines around 4 times a year at the moment, they're going to do 3 rebuilds. I have also heard that possibly this is going to be a bit of a, I'm not sure if it's going to be like a Formula One rule where you get penalties and that at the end of it, or it's going to be a bit looser, a bit like IndyCar, but the idea is that you'll only rebuild the engine 3 times a year, and they reckon that it's about 40 to 50k to do a rebuild on one of these engines. So for each car you're going to save somewhere around 40 to 50k. Yeah, you know, for a team like the Kellys, okay, that's 200k saving for the year over the 4 cars. For, you know, someone like me in the real world, 200k is a big chunk of money. When you're spending, say, $10 million a year, it's a tiny little percentage. That's a little bit of, you know, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic kind of thing. That alone isn't going to, you know, make a team want to enter, or, you know, save a team from going under or something. But I suppose if we can bring in a lot of little changes like this over time, all of a sudden, yeah, we save big amounts of money. We'll see if there's more changes, but that's what's been announced so far. See how it goes. The topic that kind of won't go away, and I can understand why, this whole safety car fiasco at Pukekohe. I'm going to do a full video on what I think should happen with the safety car procedure and that, but I'll probably save that, you know, for the off season when we got a bit of time and I can prattle on for kind of 20 minutes just on that one topic. Now, there's the sports saying, we used to in the old days, we had, guys like Russell Ingall and that, like big personalities, and we want these big personalities and that. And then, Jamie comes out and says, there are a pack of assholes up in the, the stewards and the officials, they're dickheads that don't know what they're doing. And then the next thing is, we're going to punish him for, well, okay, maybe what he said was pushing the lines. Apparently Cam Waters was in trouble for what he said. What Cam said was nothing from what I heard, unless I missed something. We want some personalities in the sport. They should be able to, speak their mind a bit, Let's not get down on them for, having a bit of a word. Like, encourage this stuff. Don't drag them down. Anyway, there's been a lot of talk about Lee Holdsworth. He's been, this win's been stolen away from him. Well, if they didn't muck up and, they picked up the right car at the wrong time, that's the key on this one. If Jamie didn't go, blazing past the safety car and all that, there's no way Lee was going to win this race. Jamie was miles out ahead. Lee, you had guys, like Chaz and Scotty and Cam Waters and that were probably all around that second place as well. Like, it's not like, Lee was right on Jamie's bumper bar or anything like that. Jamie was miles out in the distance. If Jamie didn't pass the safety car, if Dave Reynolds, who's really at fault here, if he didn't stop on the side of the track and, cause the safety car, Jamie was home and hosed. No one was catching him. He was gone. Lee, don't get butthurt that you lost this race. You were losing this race no matter what. And it wasn't a guaranteed second position either. Probably would have finished second, but it wasn't guaranteed. So get over yourself. And the people who are crying about it, get over it too. If Jamie didn't have a brain fart, he probably would have won that race anyway. Lee did make a good point about the penalties though, because Jamie just got his 15-second or the drive-through or whatever it was, I think he got the drive-through. So, he punts off someone on Saturday and gets this little 15-second penalty that was, nothing at the end. He still finished fifth, miles ahead of where Percat finished. And then on the Sunday, he turns around and says that he deliberately passed the safety car and all he got was a drive-through. But what Lee said was basically, for a deliberate act like that, there should be a bit more of a penalty, not just, the slap on the wrist of a drive-through. Maybe if the lights were green and, you were already kind of powering through, and then they went yellow and, you could say, he pulled up, saw that they were yellow, sat him behind a bit and they went, I know better, and blah, off he went. That was as deliberate as they come, Maybe get him to, something like that, get him to sit out around or something, and maybe next time he'll have a think about it before he goes past in the safety car. Now, I get asked a lot of the time, am I a Holden or Ford person? And it's always a bit of a hard one to answer because, I'm a bit of a fence sitter, bit of a fan of Nissan. I like Scotty when he's driving the Volvo, things like that too. So my beginnings in the sport, I suppose, the vaguest memory I have from my youth of, kind of getting into it. I remember Dad took us, we were at Patterson Cheney Holden when it was back in Ringwood back in the day. And I remember sitting in one of Brock's cars. So if it was at the Holden dealer, it would have been one of the Holden Commodores. It was a mobile car at the time. But my first recalls of watching the racing, I don't remember Brocky, in those days in the Commodore. I don't remember in the BMW. First I remember was him in the Sierra. So I remember sitting in his car and things like that at the dealership. So, my guy was that, the guy in the mobile car. So when I started following the sport, I was following Brocky in a Sierra, and Dad was always a Ford guy. He was a big Dick Johnson fan and things like that. So, we kind of went like that. Now, in those days as well, always, I'm not sure where I got it from or whatever, but I had a bit of a soft spot for some of the underdogs, and you had like Larry and, believe it or not, back in those days, the old Holden racing team. They were kind of the underdogs, and I remember watching Bathurst 1990, and won't get into the race too much, but I remember, I think Brock was out. I think that was the year that he was on. No, I don't think he was. Yeah, I think he was on pole in 90, and they didn't get off the line or something like that, or he had a problem early on. So I'd put my allegiances, with Perkins and the Holden racing team there, because Brocky was out. So I remember Perkins got stuck something with the safety car. He got stuck in pit lane, and he lost a few positions. I think he ended up third that day. But I was quite happy to see Gracie and Percy win in the Holden racing team car. So I'd always had a soft spot for them. And then the next year, actually, Brocky and Perkins joined up in the VNs. I seemed quite happy about that. And a few years later, then Brocky came across and he joined up with the HRT, and kind of, all the people that I've been following kind of, all came together, and, happy days. So I continued following HRT for many a year. We had Lowndes come on board, Scaife, Murphy, then Jason Bright, then Todd Kelly came in. They were always, my favourites. But then, you watch the sport more and more, and had a bit of a soft spot for the Gary Rogers guys, like Bargwana and Tander. Started following them. Tander came across, to the big boys then, the Toll HSV dealer team and things like that. Bit of a following for the Kellys. So then as people have moved around, I've started following other teams and things like that. HRT kind of went on their downward spiral, and they kind of go into a bit of obscurity. I think nearly the final straw for me with that team was when they dumped Tander. I think that was the wrong idea. I followed Tander when he went across to Gary Rogers. And, you have young blokes come into the sport. I, really like the personalities of guys like Scotty McLaughlin, Dave Reynolds, Chas Mostert. And you kind of find these days, two of my favourite drivers are in, Mustangs this year, which is a bit strange to say. But I'm a big Dave Reynolds fan, and I suppose a bit of that underdog theme kind of that I've, always kind of had there. Bit of, Erebus there. Quite like some of the young blokes. Todd Hazelwood, can't wait for him to get a bit better drive, possibly next year, I'm hearing. Things like that. Follow some of the younger guys coming up, and so kind of, and obviously, with the Kellys running the HSV dealer team, and the Kmart thing with Murphy and that, as big fans of, because that was all part of the HRT team. I've always, kind of, then even when the Kellys went off and did their own thing and started the Nissan program, always kind of followed them. Always thought the Kellys were probably a little bit underrated. If you look back at some of the results that, like a lot of people downgrade Todd, but he was up against Scaife at the HRT. Scaife owned the team at the time and that. And Todd's results some of those years, like he had a lot of wins in that over the time. It's probably just that he didn't get a championship like, Scaife, Tander and Rick did. So, following Nissans a bit, Scotty in the Volvo was great to watch. So I'm not really a Holden or a Ford person. I do own an SS Commodore, but that's probably because it's a great car. If I thought that the XR8 at the time was a better option, might have bought a Falcon. But there'd probably be a few people that disagree with me there, but the VFSS Series 2 is a brilliant car, and I'm going to hang on to that for a few more years. So that's a bit of a rambling of a few of the news items this week, and kind of how I got into the sport and kind of who I follow, and no definitive answer on whether I'm a Holden or Ford person at the moment. On these videos, I try not to let my biases get in the way of my opinion. I try not to do a scafie, and I suppose I'm not one-eyed like say Larkham. So at least Larkham admits he's a Ford person, and that I try to be a bit more, I suppose, like Russell Ingall or Murphy, where you don't let any biases get in there. They do come across at times, but not one-eyed like Scafie is. So hopefully I'll have a bit of a co-host next week, and we'll do some Bathurst previewing. Until next time, I'll see you later.
Put away your inhibitions, let the beast in you just get loose. We all young, wild, and